Plus, I bet a lot of people are traveling because of having tomorrow off. The schools are off. I don't have it off, but I know my kids do.
Well, they gave us Good Friday to play Patriots Day.
We'll get started. Good evening. Welcome to this week's meeting of the Norton Board of Selectmen. Today is Thursday, April 13th. Let the record show that Mr. Steele, Mr. Bramwell, and I are present, along with Town Manager Michael Units. Pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brad keeps looking for it. Okay, first on the agenda, we have an application of Tim O'Leary for a one-day beer and wine license to be held at the O'Leary's Gymnastics, 350 Old Colony Road, on Saturday, April 22nd, 2017, from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. for a private party. You'll have the application in your file. Anyone have any questions? Any of sort? Okay. Chair, entertain a motion to approve the application for a beer and wine for Tim O'Leary to be held at the O'Leary's Gymnastics for a private party of 100. Parking is available on site. It will be dispensed. Has been signed off by the building inspector, fire chief, and the police chief.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Well, that's liquor. Let's go. Mr. Steele?
Yeah.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Oh, yes, it's unanimous. Under town announcements, Mr. Bramwell, you have anything?
The first announcement is the town offices will be closed Monday, April 17th, 2017, in observance of Patriots Day. And let me say that I'm not used to reading announcements, so I wasn't prepared.
I understand.
Okay. We have an invitation for Canoe River Aquifer Advisory Committee for the 30th anniversary celebration on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2017, at 11 a.m. at the Chateau Restaurant, 48 Bay Road, Norton, Massachusetts. And I believe that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Steele?
I don't have anything.
The public announcement on the Finance Committee will conduct a public hearing in accordance with the Town of Charter, Article 6, Section 3C, on the proposed fiscal year 2018 operating budget as submitted by the Town Manager for the Town of Norton. Public hearing will be held on April 19, 2017, at 7:30 p.m. in the Norton Municipal Center, 70 East Main Street, Norton, Massachusetts, and copies of the proposed budget are available at the Town Manager's office in the Municipal Center. Day is it's 29th. Again, I want to remind everyone we are holding a Household Hazardous Waste Day. Will be held on Saturday, April 29th, 2017, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. here at the Norton Park Town Hall parking lot. And the Highway Department will also be open for your drop-off convenience from 9 to 12. And there's various hazardous materials that you can bring down. Things you cannot bring: latex paint, empty containers of trash, commercial industrial waste, radioactive material, smoke detectors, infectious and biological waste, pressurized cylinders, ammunition, fireworks, explosives, fire extinguishers, etc. So pretty much anything else you can bring, I guess. Just leave the hazardous stuff at home. Mr. Units?
If I could just remind everyone, Town-wide Cleanup Day is the same day, and anyone that's interested in helping out, bags will be available from 7:30 to 3:30 on Friday, the day before, and then bags will be available on that Saturday starting at 8:30, and it will run from 9 to 12. And if anyone's interested in participating as a group or adopting a street, if they could let me know. We have a list of streets that we're interested in cleaning up. Wheaton's been very involved with us on that. Alnylam is going to send a group over, which they have a big crew coming. Gilbane, who's building the Alnylam building, is sending a crew over. And there's going to be a cookout at Wheaton after the cleanup, so it'll be a good day. And hopefully we can have a lot of participation.
What day was that?
29th,
The 29th.
Saturday the
April
29th.
29th?
Yes.
Also on the 29th, on the other side of this piece of paper, is a reminder that they're going to have the proper disposal of medication. They suggest you do not flush medication down the toilet or pour it down the drain unless the label information specifically instructs you to do so. Bring expired and no longer needed prescription drugs or over-the-counter medication to the hazardous waste collection day, again on Saturday, April 29th, in their original containers. Walgreens has generously donated the use of a pharmacist specifically for this collection. So again, that is on Saturday, April 29th, from 9 to 12 p.m., and again, that's behind the town hall. Okay. I'm going to skip around a bit. We're going to ask, we are under appointments and resignation. We have the appointment of Cameron J. Eisner for a special police officer effective April 16th, 2017. Chief, evening.
Good evening. Just on that point of your announcements, actually the 29th is also the DEA's prescription take-back. And you know we have a drop box at the police station, but that day we'll also have another box out front that people can drop all their expired medication in. Usually we take in well over 100 pounds of unused or expired medication. So tonight I come before you to request a appointment for a special police officer position. Since July, we've had 5 special police officers resign. 2 basically that couldn't fulfill the commitment, and 3 others got full-time police jobs. So I'm asking for 1 appointment tonight. Probably at the end of June, we'll be asking for a couple more, and then probably in the fall look for another one. We like to have around somewhere between 8 and 10. We have, this will be our 5th right now. So Cameron Eisner is he's completed the Reserve Intermittent Police Academy as prescribed by the Massachusetts Police Training Council. That's a 345-hour course. He's also going to finish up a bachelor's degree at Bridgewater State University in May. So he's not only been going to school for the Reserve Intermittent Academy, but he's about to finish his bachelor's degree, which is quite an undertaking. He's been through a selection process, including an oral board interview, a psychological, medical, and background investigation, which he's passed all of them. He has a long family history in town, and as you might know, his father's also a sergeant on a department. So I request the appointment of Cameron Eisner.
That's good. Any questions?
None at all.
Cameron, tell us a little bit about yourself. Come on, get to the mic, come on. So you're going to school.
Yep, I'm finishing in Bridgewater in a few weeks. 4 years, bachelor's, and I'm turning 23 in July. So I know I'm kind of young, but I hope I'm the right man for the job. I know.
Okay, this is the career you want to do, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
good,
Yep.
good. Your dad's been around a while, and he's done a great job for us, so
Yep.
it'd be great to have another family member on board. Okay, so, let me see if I can find this thing. Chair will entertain a motion. Thank you. I know it's here somewhere. This is a notice of appointment of special police officer. I hereby notify the Board of Selectmen that in accordance with the provisions of Article 4, Section 2B of the Norton Charter, acting in my capacity as the appointing authority, I've appointed the following individual as a special police officer, Cameron J. Eisner. Said appointment was made on April 6, 2017, in accordance with the provisions of the Norton Charter, and will be effective April 21st, 2017, unless the Board of Selectmen votes to accept or reject the appointment prior to that date. I specifically request the Board's acceptance of this appointment with an effective date of April 16th, 2017. A motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So as part of the process now, he'll go through firearms training and then be assigned to a field training officer for a good number of hours and weeks that he'll have to complete that process.
Were they reading the paper recently about putting cadets and stuff into positions in, was it one of the other towns nearby was
Yeah,
trying?
Mansfield's looking to do that.
What is
it's part of
exactly
the-
is that?
It's basically, it's a civil service position where you can work in a cadet position till the age of, I believe, 25, and you'd be picked from the civil service list. It's basically like a full-time position, so they're gonna, what Mansfield's plan is to, when the Regional Communications Center goes in, they're gonna put that person as the desk officer.
Okay,
So that's what they're looking to do.
okay. All right. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations, Cam.
Okay. Get back on the agenda here. Did we announce that the town hall is closed on Monday?
Yes.
Okay. Did you mention that again?
I didn't hear.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention.
Okay. Under new business, we have the vote to authorize the chairman to sign the solar estapels with Norton Landfill Solar LLC. Mr.
Yep.
Units?
These are just two documents that are necessary for Norton Solar LLC to obtain some financing. And basically, one is as the landlord and one is as the purchaser of power. And it's basically just saying we haven't sold the property, we haven't declared bankruptcy, we're not in default of, or breach of any contract. And we had signed these previously for another borrowing that they had to do.
Now, this was signed once before, but there's been some changes, right?
Right.
You may recall, we did sign off on this at a prior meeting, but they'd modified some of the agreement, and we have to reapprove the request. Anyone have any questions? What are we going to generate from this project again?
It's approximately $300,000 a year, $80,000 in rent, $40,000 in a pilot payment, and then the energy savings. The first month alone, the facility went online December 29th, and the first month, we saw a credit of $27,000 on our electric bill.
Imagine. We're making money. So $300,000 a year, how many years is that? Is the
20 years.
20 years, so you're looking at what, 6 million?
Yeah.
Over a 20-year period? It's a lot of money for a capped landfill that was basically sitting there. And, Mr. Eunice led the way, the charge on getting this thing done, and this is a great way to raise some additional funds for the town. Great job. Okay, seeing no additional questions, the chair will entertain a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the solar estapels with Norton Landfill Solar LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Also on the new business, we have the vote to certify the designation and authorization provided in 2015 to authorize and designate Town Manager Michael D. Units remains valid and effective for the execution of a new ESA in 2017. You want to explain what that's all about?
Basically, what it is next Wednesday, April 19th, is going to be bid day for our energy aggregation again.
Okay.
And this would just be authorizing me to be the representative on bid day. And Bob would be the alternate if I wasn't available. And when I'm talking about this, if you talk to anybody, a few people have come in recently where there are companies pressuring them to sign up with their company. And I ask people just to be patient until we go through this process, and then you'll know what your fixed rate will be under the energy aggregation beginning next year.
Okay.
So hopefully we can get a better rate, and we'll be looking hopefully at a 3-year deal so we can get a good rate.
Okay. Any questions?
and it'll be fixed.
Fixed rate?
Because a lot of these companies might offer someone they come out now because it's the summer, and they'll offer them a good summer rate, but then it'll go up in the winter, and they won't be expecting that. So I've had people come in, I've told them, wait until this happens, be patient, and hopefully we get a better rate.
Okay. So, any questions? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to certify that the designation and authorization provided in 2015 to authorize and designate town manager Michael D. Units and as an alternate Robert Kimball remains valid and effective for the execution of the new ESA in 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay. So mail, mail. Okay. Just checking to see what kind of mail I have, too. Are we live? Okay. Sorry, folks, we've been having some technical problems, but we are now live, and we'll continue this meeting of April 13th, Board of Selectmen's meeting, the time being about 7:18 PM. Okay, next on the agenda is old business to review and a draft and/or vote on draft May 8th, 2017 spring annual town meeting warrant articles. Mr. Units?
Yep. The last time, you've taken up all the articles that, on the warrant that could be taken up at this time, except Selectman Steele had a question on the water budget that I think I've answered, and that was the only budget that you had to vote.
Okay. So that was Article what?
Article 12,
Water enterprise account?
yes.
Any questions about the, Mr. Steele? You satisfied with your answer?
I am.
Okay. Seeing none, Chair entertain a motion to support Article 12.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anything else?
The only other articles, and we're still not sure, well, we will have collective bargaining, I believe, but we just want to see which contracts, we're still working on some. And I'm not sure if we'll have anything under the retirement expense, which is number 3. 6, the pilot tax agreement is something that's still being worked on and may not be available for this town meeting. And same with the codification, still waiting to see if we're going to have something on that. Finance Committee also voted like the board did, no action on OPEB and stabilization. We have done nothing as of yet with capital improvements appropriation. The only thing I could see happening there, possibly, if the override passed, I believe there's $125,000 in there to renovate the Chartley Station, so that might be put in under this proposal, and then the capital would have to amend their plan to recommend that $125,000. The Finance Committee did not vote on the budget as yet. They have reviewed the budget, but they're going to do their final vote after their public hearing next week. And I know there's some discussion about 2 bites at the apple. I think that's the terminology that's been out there. And I just want to emphasize again, if the override fails at the ballot on April 25th, the Finance Committee more than likely, I don't want to speak for them, but they can talk about it next Wednesday, won't bring forward a budget that's out of balance. So the budget that comes forward would be a balanced budget. Now, if the override question does pass, I would assume that the Finance Committee will be bringing forward a budget that would include the override money. There's not a need to have there's a need to prepare a balanced budget and to prepare an override budget. But if you have the vote before the town meeting, there's no need to present two budgets at town meeting. You present one budget if, based on the funding that you have available. Now, people can, of course, as was discussed at the Finance Committee the other night, people can stand up and try and amend a budget, but we won't be bringing, if the question passes on April 25th, the budget that will be presented, and I'm assuming, I'll wait until the Finance Committee speaks on this themselves, will be a budget that would include all those override items that the voters voted to support.
And so then, sorry, Mr. Chairman. So then we would take a vote to approve the budget that included the override amount.
Right.
And if it passed, it's a done deal. And if it fails, then we revert to the balanced budget.
Right. And I will bring to the Finance Committee next Wednesday, they've already had the balanced budget. I will bring a budget to them next Wednesday that would include those items that were listed as override items, and they'll talk about that at their budget hearing next Wednesday also.
So that, yeah, there's no need to go over both budgets. You vote on the override
Right.
budget if it passes, and then you're done. And if it fails,
Right,
it's a fallback.
yep.
Okay, I
It
understand.
has to be balanced. No matter what we
Yeah.
do, it has to be balanced.
Right.
One way or the other, it has to balance.
Yeah.
So, okay, it should be noted, Mr. Yunus may want to speak on this, we changed the location of the operating budget article on the spring warrant.
It's Article 8.
So it was 15? I believe originally it was
15 or 16. I believe.
15 or 16. We've moved it up and made it the article is number 8, figuring on the convenience of, the hour. And I'm not suggesting that people should come for Article 8 and then go home. But, we know how town meeting works and has worked in the past. In between all these articles, we have Article 8 is going to probably be the biggest discussion of the evening. But even prior to that, we have to hold a special town meeting within the annual. So the idea, or the concept, and this was something the moderator was pushing for really, was to move this up with the hope that we can get it done the first night. Because we're talking about putting a cap at 11 o'clock on the first night of the town meeting, in case it gets long and overdrawn. So by doing this and moving it forward, it allows us to take care of the business, first the early business, and then take care of the special town meeting, then go back to the annual town meeting and address the warrant, the article for the actual budget. So with the hopes and intent to make sure that, we try to get it all done the first night. Even if we don't finish the rest of the business until the second night, trying to get as much done as we can. So, yeah,
And just going to a second night would end up costing us, we got an estimate today from Norton Cable for the extra equipment that we're going to need for the town meeting, which the Finance Committee will have to have a reserve fund transfer in order to pay for that. The total cost, including a second night, is $29,357. Now, cable will pay a third of that,
so they'll pay about 10 grand.
and we'll be responsible for the rest. Now, also included in that is $3,600 for staff for a second night. So if we don't have that second night, you can take $3,600 off of that.
But we need to plan for 2 nights. And we are planning for 2 nights. We're looking at other opportunities too. We have to figure out the capacity of the high school, whether or not we have to go to another building, if we have to. How we're going to authorize or allow communication between the various rooms at the high school. Transportation, as far as busing people in from other satellite facilities, parking facilities, chairs, things of that sort. So it's going to be an expensive venture, but at the same time, we are required, under our charter and the way that our government is set up, we are required to have access, allow the public access to these town meetings. And we have to make every effort and create every condition to allow that to happen. So we're going to anticipate a couple thousand voters. But we're not sure even if that's going to be enough space. So we really don't know. It's going to be pretty much a gamble as to whether or not we're going to have enough space to handle this. But we are making having alternative locations. I believe every room has to have a vice moderator. So we're going to have to set that up. The moderator will have to set that up. So it's a major undertaking, but we're already working on it. Obviously, if it doesn't go through on the ballot, then we don't have to worry about it anymore, but we need to start planning now just in case it does, so.
Mr. Chairman, we had spoken about other locations. Is Wheaton, is the field house at Wheaton not an option?
We never really had, first of all, here's what's going on, in my mind, this is what I'm thinking. We've been accused by many so far of trying to, keep everybody in the dark, and we're not being as public as we should be. My concern about moving it any place other than the high school is suddenly people saying, I didn't know it was at the Haas building at Wheaton campus. How was I supposed to know that? So I think at this point where it's so late in the process, we're actually better off to keep it in the buildings that we're accustomed to using. That doesn't mean that if anything ever comes up that's large like this again, that we shouldn't look at other larger buildings in town. We did look at the Xfinity Center, figuring that could mean we could put as many people as we want to there. And we checked with town council and found out we cannot hold a town meeting outside the borders of our town, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. And we do not own any land around the Xfinity Center, so that was pretty much an out. So the only large building that I'm aware of in town that could possibly handle it would be is it the Haas, H-A-A-S?
Center, and they have the parking right there. They've
Right.
got the student parking behind it, behind your house.
Yeah.
And on campus, so it just seems like that would,
Yeah. But on the other hand, when is their graduation?
yeah, so their graduation is May 20th.
Okay, so they're after that,
They're after that.
so, okay. Well, again, I don't know if we have time to
Yeah.
promote that,
Maybe we may
change
not.
it, and be accused of doing something else to
Yeah, it's always something.
control the
I'll just
vote.
check and see if it was available as an option.
Okay.
You had a question, I think, from last night. You were wondering about how much money we should have in stabilization.
Yeah, it was a two-part question, and, I didn't have the material I should have had with me to answer the question. I want to make sure we do answer it. The first part of the question is, how much money do we have in the account? And the second is, what are we required, what are we supposed to have in both of those accounts?
Well, right now in stabilization, we have 1.4 million. And you should have 5% of your annual budget should be in stabilization. So we should have 2.7 million in our stabilization. So we're under by 1.2 million.
Okay.
With just the last couple years, maybe the last 3 years, been starting to put money into the stabilization. I know the first few years I was here and before I got here, there was no money going into it. So we've recently just started filling that obligation.
What's that account used for?
Stabilization is an emergency account to have to, if there's some catastrophe in a building that you have to do something, you'd have that money available. And it requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting to take any money out of stabilization. The other thing to keep in mind is that, as the auditors said when they were here, that we should have 10% liquid assets available. So that would include your stabilization, capital stabilization, and free cash. And we were at about 8% this year, which was pretty close and was good. For us, that would be 5.4 million.
How much do we have left in the capital account?
Well, in the capital right now, there's 972,000 before town meeting. you will be spending money out of that, so. It'll be down to about 300,000 after town meeting.
Normally, what we try to do is we spend it in the spring and we try to replenish in the fall. And that all depends on what is available as far as free cash certification and all that stuff in the fall, so. Hopefully we'll have money to put back in there, but we never know until, was it August? We finally get some idea.
Later than that, when the free
Yeah.
cash certification
Yeah.
will be September.
Yeah, we get an idea how much money we're gonna have available for that, so.
And you have 272,000 of the 54 million that you should have in your
Mm-hmm.
OPEB, so you're almost there, just a little bit more.
Yeah. That one I'm not gonna worry too much.
No, I agree with you.
Okay, anything else on the spring annual town meeting? That it? Okay. Next on the agenda is town manager's report? We doing anything on the special yet? No?
Did you have the, I don't think Carol put the special on, but you did say town meeting, so,
Well, we have this sheet,
yeah.
so we
We
have.
just have, right now, if you wanted to vote, three articles right now that the FinCom has recommended, but I would hold off on Article 3 for now. There may be another. Article 1 is an unpaid bill, and that is $38.58 for the police department. And a lot of times it's just a timing issue when the bill comes in. And that money would be paid out of their current expense budget, but because it's a prior year bill, town meeting has to vote. So if the board want to vote on Article 1.
Okay, Chair, entertain a motion to support Article 1, unpaid bills for the amount of $38.58 to be paid out of the police expense account.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
And Article 2 is separation expense for two employees that are retiring, one from highway and one from the town clerk's office. And the total cost for sick leave buyback and vacation for the two employees is $29,447. And this is the OPEB. If you had a fully funded OPEB account, you'd be taking this money out of the OPEB account. So
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
I would say, this will come out of free cash.
Free cash. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, Chair, entertain a motion to support Article 2 separation expenses for the amount of $29,447 to be taken out of free cash.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. We have skip Article 3 for now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have town manager's report.
Just, I already talked to you about the cleanup day. The other, just to let you know on the flushing program, last night, they did South Washington Street to Commerce Way. Tonight, they'll be flushing Commerce Way, the extended stay and the side roads off South Washington Street. And then if time permits, Plain Street to the LG Norse. They received no water quality complaints yesterday and have received very few this week. So,
I'll keep Pine Street quiet.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
We already did the appointments, Selectmen report and mail. Mr. Vice Chair.
I just wanted to speak on the override. I was kind of on the fence, and I let my feelings known about this. And I have to say that after weighing the override and the way it's split, that I'm in favor of the override question this time. But I want to reiterate the caution that I stated before, that in the subsequent years, that we, if this passes, that we have to honor the spirit in which the voters pass it, and that is to fund the government side departments as they are in this override, and not turn around next year and lose a percentage of it to the school department just because of the arbitrary 70-30 split.
Right.
That anything above, that's involved in this override should stay split the way it is.
Which is roughly 50/50.
Right, and then anything beyond that, we can revert to the usual split.
Okay.
But I think we have to maintain the services that we're promising the people to vote for this override, so we can make services available to Council on Aging, to have the policemen, to have the Charlie Fire Station. And I don't want it to be a one-shot deal, and then have that funding taken over by the other department in subsequent years.
Totally
So-
agree.
So I support it with the fact that, the knowledge that my fellow members of the Board of Selectmen and the town manager will work in subsequent years to protect that funding as the voters may deem appropriate. And I've seen a lot of people that I know for, a lot of people that I know against, and I respect all their views, just like I hope they'll respect mine. And that, I know when Mr. Stefanelli was in here rebutting, a meeting two meetings ago, or, and he mentioned how we defeated it last time. And to me, it was a totally different override question.
Right.
Because I too, on that vote, voted to defeat it. Because I was not for it, because I didn't believe that override was fiscally responsible for the entire town. Where I think the work that you and Mary have done, along with the other, and Mr. Units, along with the representatives from the school department and the finance committee, to make it a well-rounded financial picture to take care of the town and not take care of one side of the town,
Right.
has been well worth it. And I want to thank you all, and I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Mr. Steele?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple things. One, what is the process? How do we protect that funding? Because I do agree with everything that Brad just said. But, after the first year, is it, I mean, you as basically the CFO, are you the one that drives that budget? Is it the FinCom?
Well,
It's a valid concern, especially since the amount, it's such a 50-50 split going into it.
it would be my budget that I present to the Finance Committee, and then it's up to the Finance Committee to agree to vote that way, and then ultimately it's up to town meeting.
Okay.
And town meeting is the one that makes the final say.
I would, so further to that, one, I think we got a lot of work done this year, and I feel that the group that we were working with, the school, is in the same frame of mind with us. They were looking to make this an override that was in the best interest of the whole town. So I would hope that, well, all I can say is I'm going to be the person to champion for that, because in my mind, this is the way it needs to be going forward, and I'd be very disappointed if we fought for an override that we sold to the town as being good for the whole town, and in a year was no longer. So I give you my word on that, Brad. And then the other thing I want to say is I feel like Bob and I had an advantage because we were talking about the override for so long. We were looking at numbers. We were talking with Mike and Dr. Bayetta. We were talking to the school committee. So for the past 10 months, we had a lot of time to look at the numbers, and in our minds, we really understood where we were going. And yourself and other members of this board and the school committee maybe didn't have that option to have as much information, although we did try to keep you updated. We were giving you the bullet points, basically. So what I want to say tonight is I really respect the fact that you took the time to look over everything that we did. I've always felt that you are definitely a voice of reason on this board, and I have to say it really makes me feel good that you were able to look at everything that we've done in the past 10 months and agree with us that this is in the best interest of the town. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And had you not, I have total respect for everybody on both sides of this vote, it wouldn't have been an issue, but you did make me feel good tonight in saying that.
And I think, again, being the reasonable, probably the only reasonable person on the board, with, beyond you. But I think what's important to stress is that, you know, a lot of us did not support the last attempt, and I've said a couple of times, I didn't support the last 2 or 3 attempts to do an override. And I think it's people like yourself that are sitting on that fence that continue to have an open mind and just not say yes and just not say no. They're looking at both sides and trying to figure out reasonably what makes sense. And I sometimes I like to consider myself on that same fence post because I feel that sometimes you have to do what's in the best interest of the general public, you know, and your 50-50 concern is also my concern and will continue to be my concern as long as I sit here. But I wonder, Mr. Yunus, could we, I know there are ways that we can establish policy as a board. Could we establish a policy after, let's say, we're premature now, but let's say it does go through. Could we establish a policy where we say, okay, in this particular override, we spent, you know, $2.2 million. It is our desire as part of our policy that this money only would be, continue to be 1.1 and 1.1, you know, and make a policy out of it. A financial policy. I'm not sure we can do that, but I would like to look into that after the election and after the town meeting, because if that money does go through, to Brad's concern and mine, and I believe Mary's too, we want to freeze this so that no matter what Board of Selectmen sit here, that we would have some kind of a policy in place to try to lock that in for a number of years. Not to say it'll always be that way. Town meeting can do anything they want to do. I get that. But if it's our policy to say, this is how we want it to go, and if it doesn't go that way, I'm not sure anyone has to adhere to our policy, but it should be our desire and policy to try to do it that way. And maybe we can look at that after, if it all goes through.
And I think that the fact that we're actually opening another building, that has to be sustained. It doesn't do us any good to open that building for 2 years and then shut
No.
it again, right? So
No.
if we're saying as a town, this is a public safety issue, and this is what we want as the best interest of the town, we've got to have a plan to make sure that that building stays open.
No, I agree. How many times has Shotley opened and closed?
I can't count that.
Well, you know, I was talking about it to somebody today. We were talking about the Shotley Fire Station. I remember when it was closed. I remember we opened it again, and then we closed it again. And then occasionally we open and close it, but it's not manned all the time. But the sad part, when you talk about living on a shoestring, we need to step one step back and look at Winnicott Fire Station. Winnicott Fire Station, when I first became a selectman, was manned. We had people down there. Over the years, we couldn't man it anymore. We did nothing to improve it, maintain it, do anything to that building. It came crumbling down. We knocked the building down. We actually lost the fire station because financially we could not take care of it. Not only personnel-wise, but, you know, capital-wise. We couldn't take care of the building. Shame on us. We allowed that to happen. And when you look at the Charlie Station, it's on the same path or the same trail as Winnicott. And before I moved here, I know there was a number of small satellite fire stations all over town. And the intent of this one here, built in the center, was to kind of replace some of those. I understand what the process was, but, you know, when you think about Winnicott, especially now with a bridge out in between us, you think about that, the importance of having a facility out there, and then going to the west side of town and looking at Shotley, you understand that how important it is to have that type of, personnel and safety in our neighborhoods. So, again, if this does not pass, the Shotley Fire Station is going to continue to decay. We're not going to have the funding in place to do anything about it. It's only a matter of time before we're looking at that saying, okay, what are we going to do with this? Are we going to knock it down and build a new one? Or build it in a different location? Or what are we going to do? You know, and I think, you know, as a town, we have an obligation to try to maintain what we have, if nothing else. And we should be ashamed of ourselves that we allowed the Winnicott Station to go in such disrepair that we had to knock it down. I mean, the roof was caving in, and in hindsight, it's kind of embarrassing when you think about it. So, but hopefully we'll move on. Mrs. Steele?
You know, it's every override, it comes up with, we talk about the number of men that we have on our public safety and departments, and, you know, I know that we all like the little town that Norton is, but it's not. I mean, when you look at where we are, situated in between two major highways, we've got a major college in town, we get all of the overflow problems coming out of the Comcast Center at our expense, and we get none of the revenue out of it. And how many times in the past year has our public safety been called to 495 for serious, serious accidents? And we've got our manpower on 495 and we have an accident on the Attleboro line or a fire or a medical emergency. We're not ensuring the safety of the residents in this town just because of the way we've grown. We're a big town and we've got a lot of issues that a lot of towns our size don't face just because of the way we're situated. So for me, this override really is about the safety and welfare of the residents of the town. And I hope people can look at what we're asking to do and realize that we're not asking to go overboard. We're just asking for the basics to protect the town and bring the school to a level that it needs to be.
And I know it was brought up again last night about, okay, so you can override this year, next year, coming back for another one. And I've publicly stated a number of times, when we looked at this, we analyzed all these numbers, it's not enough. I'll tell you right now, we should be asking for more, but we've been very prudent about it. We've said, okay, what is important to the town to make this work? Could we do more? Could we have other programs? Yeah, there's a lot of things we could do, but we're not asking to do that. We're just trying to maintain and put back some of the services that we've had in the past. And the question keeps coming up, well, if you get this one, you're going to be back again for another one next year, the year after. That's not the truth. The truth of the matter is, we analyzed this information to the town manager and the superintendent and said, look, if we can get this one-time adjustment in the budget, we feel we can continue to maintain services for at least the next 5 years, unless something catastrophic comes up along the way. I mean, you never know, but, you know, the plan is that we should be able, this should handle us for the next few years, 5 years or more, and not have to worry about making any further adjustments. We haven't made any adjustments in our budget since 1981. You know, the idea behind Prop 2.5 was to cap it, but to allow people the opportunity, if they wanted to, override that amount of money to improve services or whatever purposes it might be. We've never done that. And, you know, when you look in hindsight, you say to yourself, and, you know, I was just moved to town when this all came about, and I wasn't involved, but the question should be asked is, where were we at the starting point? Were we the small conservative town of Norton, which we are, from the very beginning, squeezing every penny we had, and suddenly we're saying, okay, that's what you're going to start with, and now you keep adding 2.5% to that. And over the years, we never caught up. And I can show you town reports from the days, my finance committee days, we're talking about the same stuff today. We're talking 1987. We're still having the same conversations. And it's been going on for years and years and years. Every year we're having the same conversations. So we'll see how this all turns out and see what happens. Brad?
If I may, when you were talking about history, basically we were at the point in the early 90s of having to talk about closing the LG North School.
Yeah.
And the only thing that saved us was education reform.
Right.
And now education reform, because of the way the town has grown, we've been reclassified, so our reimbursements from the state are dropping. And just to maintain the funds, the state expects us to chip in more.
Right.
And it's not, the money's got to come from someplace.
Right.
And it's not like, you know, it's this giant windfall. It's to make up for what the state is not going to send to us, because according to them, we're so affluent.
Right.
We went from a farming town to now this affluent suburban town, which I don't see it in my household. but then I guess I'm not typical.
And again, the health insurance costs have continued to
Skyrocket.
skyrocket. Special education costs for the town of Norton have continued to skyrocket. Things we have no control over. I mean, we have some because we had a town manager who worked very hard to get us into a program where we were able to save some money every year in a co-op type of program. We've had town employees give up some of their benefits to help us with that, but it's still spiraling northward. It's going up and up and up and up, and there's no way to control it. There really isn't. Mr. Steele?
Mr. Chairman, I'm totally in agreement with what you and Brad said about the 5-year plan and everything. And, really, yes, I'm supporting this override. Do I have an appetite to go for an override every year? No, this is exhausting. It's exhausting to the town. It divides our town. It's not something that we want to continue to do. But in my mind, an override, which is extremely fiscally responsible, that we're asking the town to approve, that will set us forward, like you said, barring any serious, catastrophe, for the next 5 years. At the same time, we are working as volunteers in all departments in this town and as paid municipal employees to bring in other sources of revenue, and they're just starting to hit. When An Island starts in, when some of the business down in that park some of that revenue starts to come through, that's going to help our budget. Hopefully with the rezoning over on Leonard Street, that will help. The solar panels, $18 million over the next, how many years?
$6 million in the next 20.
Oh, 6 million? Oh, 18 would have been nice, but I'll take 6.
We'll find another spot.
Yeah, there you go. But you know what? This isn't stuff that's just happening overnight. This is stuff that's been in the works, and that I believe will help to sustain us in the future. While this override in the short term will help us to get to the point where we need to be, and I feel like it's going to give us a little jump forward and get the momentum going in the right direction.
The one thing that was very clear to me last night was, and it was brought up a number of times, was programs like recreation. Well, go for donations. Find money. I have never, every time you turn around, there are people asking for something. And the small businesses in this town have been very, very generous for a very, very, very long time, including Wheaton College. And Wheaton was kind of bashed around a bit last night about, what they're doing for the community. And maybe between now and the next meeting, you can find out that one time they were number 3 taxpayer. And I believe they're still in the top 12. And the only reason they've gone down the list is because we, as a board, have built these huge factories, Horizon Beverage, and some of these other facilities that are now taken over as the main dominant taxpayers in town. Cisco, was there with Wheaton for a number of years, and now that's still there, for the most part. But, when you've got a whole bunch of volunteers, and that's what we all are, out trying to scrape up every nickel we can, we're doing that. But at some point, we have to take responsibility for what we want in the town and stop begging everyone else to help us do things that we should be doing ourselves. We should be paying for ourselves. And I think recreation is a perfect example of that. You've got a bunch of dedicated volunteers that are doing everything they can to keep that program going. And they are asking for money, and they are begging, and they're running benefits, and they're trying to do everything to make money. Just last weekend, they were doing the Easter egg hunt on the town common. That costs money, but they're raising the funds somehow to make that happen for the best, in the best interest of the community. And I think it's a wonderful thing that they're doing. And in their frustration, they're saying, look, all we want is a professional, full-time person that can help us because we're tired. And we're tired of trying to raise the cash and the money and be responsible for the Halloween parade, Founder's Day, the Easter egg hunt. They have a bunch of programs that they offer that we probably don't publicize enough. And I get their frustration because the 3 of us sitting here as volunteers understand also how tough it is to do the job sometimes when you don't have what you need to do it. So, Mr. Eunice?
Nope, all set.
Well, you were going to say something.
No, I'm all set.
And I think in last night's forum, I think Representative Barrows got up and threw some numbers around that he had compiled that were really eye-openers. I sent you a copy of it today, Mike. You know, maybe you could take that information and kind of recap it again for us. And it was an evaluation of neighboring communities and how they've fared over the years, and, you know, how many overrides they've had and that kind of stuff, you know, to make us aware of what we're trying to do, so. Okay. So where were we? You all done with your town manager report?
were in
Yes, I think you were about to say,
We're gonna do
because
mail.
next week is a short week, you weren't gonna have a meeting.
Okay, Selectmen report and mail. You have anything?
That was him.
That was it.
That was it?
It's long-winded. Jeez, Brad.
Mrs. Steele, you have anything?
No, thanks.
We did receive a letter from Boy Scouts of America, Troop 61. They have 5 young men who are reaching the rank of the highest award of the Boy Scouts, and that's the Eagle Scout rank. It's going to be held, looks like it's going to be held on May 6th.
Yeah, this is Saturday.
Saturday, May 6th. There were 5 young men: Lucas John Aruda, Reese Antone Bodner, Grayson Scott Kelly, Ryan McFarland, and Christopher Smith have all reached the point where they're going to have a brief ceremony at St. Mary's to recognize these young men in their achievements here, and not only in the town of Norton, but in other towns around us too. So it is an invitation. Yeah, which you have some certificates made up. We'll see if we can get someone to go. I mean, I know we're all kind of busy this time of year. We'll have to see if we're available. I know you're not available, Mr. Brownwell.
Now-
For some reason, I
now
think
that-
I have something coming up too.
Now that I actually have a calendar with me,
Yeah,
I found out that I have a wedding that day.
okay. But we'll,
So if we
if
can't
we
make it,
can't,
we'll send this.
we'll make sure the certificates get there. We can't make it ourselves. Okay. What else here? Do I have anything else? Nope, I think that's it.
Minutes?
Yeah, I'm looking and see if I have any other things on the agenda. Okay. So under warrants and minutes, we have Mr. Ramo.
Yeah, I move to approve the biweekly payroll for the period ended April 8th, 2017. Warrant number 61 dated April 13th, 2017, in the amount of $1,208,706.67.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion on warrant number 61? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I move to approve bills warrant number 62 dated April 13th, 2017, in the amount of $434,507.94.
Second.
Motion is second on bills warrant number 62. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. We don't have any minutes this week. Next meeting on the agenda is to continue to discuss and to vote on the draft for the May 8, 2017 Spring Annual Town Meeting warrant articles. And if you have anything else you would like to bring up, just let Mr. Yunus know before the next meeting, and we will add it to the agenda. In the meantime, see if I can find this piece of paper here. I declare under Massachusetts General Law 30A, Section 21, subsection A3, that for the purpose of collective session will be discussed a strategy in respect to collective bargaining with union personnel and to conduct collective bargaining with non-union personnel. Because of discussion, strategy in open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session, and with the board not to return to open session at the conclusion of the open session.
I move that the board go into executive session under General Laws, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, for the purpose and reasons declared by the chairman, and that the board will not return to open session thereafter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Steele? Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
And I too will vote yes. Thanks, Shane. Thank you.